AITA for refusing to sign over my stepdaughter's college fund after my wife's affair. I'm Mitchell, 40, and for almost 8 years, I believed that being a good husband meant being the steady one when everyone else was emotional. Clara and I married when her daughter, Ivy, was 4. I never became Ivy's legal father, but in every ordinary way that fills up a week, I acted like one. I packed lunches. I learned which yogurt she would actually eat and which one she would carry around all day until it came home warm in her lunchbox. I learned how to make a ponytail and, after a lot of failed attempts, something that was technically a braid if you were generous. I knew which stuffed animal had to come on overnight trips, which teacher made her nervous, and which side of the back seat she preferred because the sun bothered her eyes on the other side. I sat through school concerts where 20 kids played recorders like they were settling a personal score. I still have the ticket from the first one. Ivy had been 5. Afterward, she came running down the aisle in a sparkly blue skirt and threw both arms around me before Clara could even get her phone out for a picture. I tucked the little paper ticket into my coat pocket and later put it in the top drawer of my desk. I had no reason to keep it. I just did. Her biological father, Adrian, was around in the loosest possible sense back then. He'd be intensely involved for 2 months, disappear for 4, then return with some explanation about work, money, stress, bad timing, or needing to get his head straight. Clara never stopped him from seeing Ivy, but she also never relied on him for much. That became my job. I did not resent Ivy for it. I need to make that clear. If anything, I probably overcorrected. I had this quiet belief that if I was patient enough, dependable enough, generous enough, then eventually nobody would need to explain where I fit. I would just fit. That was also why the adoption issue bothered me more than I admitted. I brought it up for the first time after Clara and I had been married for about 2 years. I told her I wanted to know whether legal adoption was something we should discuss seriously. I had already been doing school pickups, doctor appointments, emergency contacts, and activity fees, all of it. I thought making the relationship official might give Ivy more security. Clara smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Paperwork doesn't make you her dad. Showing up does." It sounded sweet at the time. When I asked again a year later, she said Ivy was too young to deal with anything that might feel like replacing Adrian. The next time, she said Adrian would never agree. After that, it became, "Why are you so hung up on a title?" So I stopped asking. I told myself she was right about the important part. I was there. Then Adrian started showing up more. At first, I was glad. I mean that. Ivy was getting older, and she had started asking questions about why her dad missed things. Adrian had apparently gotten himself into a more stable place, and Clara said he wanted another chance to be consistent. So he started with school pickups, then a Saturday breakfast here and there. Then he joined us at one of Ivy's games. Then Clara suggested the 3 of them should have dinner once in a while because, in her words, it's good for Ivy to see that her parents can co-parent in a healthy way. That became Clara's favorite phrase. Healthy co-parenting. If I asked why Adrian needed to call at 10:30 at night about a school form that had been due 3 days earlier, that was healthy co-parenting. If Clara came home an hour later than expected after dropping Ivy off, that was healthy co-parenting. If Adrian suddenly started appearing in our shared calendar on days when there was no actual event involving Ivy, that was healthy co-parenting. At first, I tried not to be the jealous husband. I did not want to become the guy who treated any contact with an ex like betrayal. Adrian was Ivy's father. I knew he was going to be in our lives. What changed was not just how often he was around. It was how Clara started treating me when I noticed. One night, she came home after 11. She had told me she was meeting Adrian to go over some changes to Ivy's pickup schedule. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee I had reheated twice and forgotten to drink. I asked, "That took 4 hours." She dropped her purse on a chair and stared at me like I had accused her of murder. "We talked. For 4 hours?" "Yes, Mitchell. People can talk for 4 hours. About the pickup schedule?" She pulled out a chair, but instead of sitting, she leaned both hands on the back. "You do this every time he tries to be involved." "Do what?" "Make it a problem." "I asked why you were gone 4 hours. And I answered. Then she said the word that started appearing more and more over the next few months. Insecure. I was insecure because I asked questions. Insecure because I noticed she kept turning her phone face down. Insecure because I mentioned that Adrian had somehow become her first call about things that had nothing to do with Ivy. Once, after he stayed nearly an hour after dropping Ivy off, I asked why he had been in our driveway that long. Clara laughed and said, "You're acting like you don't like sharing." The next morning, Ivy said almost the same thing. We were in the kitchen. I was making eggs while she was looking for a charger. She said, "Mom says you don't like sharing, Dad." I turned around. "What does that mean?" She shrugged. "I don't know." She said, "You're not used to him being around." I hated the way that landed. Not because Ivy meant anything by it. She was 12. She was repeating what she had heard. I told her, "Your dad being around for you is a good thing. You don't need to worry about how the adults feel about it." She nodded and went back to looking for the charger. That conversation stayed with me. So did another one. It happened about 2 weeks later. I had started a college account for Ivy years earlier. It was not some giant trust fund. I was not secretly sitting on $500,000. I had just been putting money away steadily because college felt like one of those things that gets expensive long before you are emotionally prepared for it. Clara knew about it. She had always called it Ivy's college money. That was fine with me because that was exactly how I thought of it. Then one Tuesday night, Clara put a set of documents on the counter after dinner. She said, "I need you to sign these." I glanced down. It was paperwork related to transferring control of the account. I read enough to understand that she wanted authority over money I had been funding. I asked why. She looked surprised I had even asked. "Because it's Ivy's money. I know who it's for. So it should be under her mother's control." "Why now?" Clara exhaled through her nose. "Because I'm tired of having to depend on whether you approve of everything. For college. For her future. That account is for education." "Yes." "So what exactly are you worried I'm going to refuse to pay for?" She crossed her arms. "That is not the point." "It kind of is." Then she gave me the line she would repeat in different forms for weeks. "If you really love her, why are you making the money about you?" I remember staring at her because the accusation was so upside down. I said, "I'm not taking it away from Ivy." "Then sign it." "No." Her face changed. Not dramatically, just enough. I had seen Clara angry before. This was different. It was like she had expected resistance for maybe 10 seconds, not an actual refusal. She picked up the papers. "You're proving exactly what I've been saying." "What have you been saying?" She paused. "Nothing." That was the first moment I knew there was a larger conversation happening about me somewhere else. A few days later, Kendra texted me. Kendra was one of Clara's closest friends. I had known her almost as long as I had known Clara. Her message was short. "Can I ask you something without you getting mad?" I wrote back, "Depends on the question." She called me instead. After some awkward small talk, she said, "Why are you punishing Ivy?" I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. "What?" "The college money." "What about it?" "Clara said you threatened to take it away because she's letting Adrian be more involved." That was the first time I heard the story Clara had been telling. I said, "I did not threaten to take anything away." Kendra was quiet. I continued, "Clara asked me to transfer control of the account to her." I said no. "The money is still there for Ivy." "She told us you froze it." "I did not." "She said you're using money to control the situation." "I'm telling you what happened." Kendra sighed. "That's not what she told us." I wanted to defend myself. Instead, I asked, "Who is us?" Another pause. "Just people." That answer told me enough. Over the next week, I noticed the way a few mutual friends interacted with me. Nobody confronted me directly, but I got short replies. Tight smiles. One guy who normally joked with me at a barbecue gave me a stiff nod and then found somewhere else to stand. Clara had turned my refusal to hand her an account into proof that I was controlling. And I still did not know why she needed the account so badly. Then Adrian texted me. He and I rarely communicated unless it involved Ivy directly. His message said, "You can't buy your way into being her dad." I read it twice. Then I wrote back, "What are you talking about?" He did not answer for 10 minutes. Then, just saying, "Money doesn't make you family." I set the phone down. I remember thinking how strange it was that the person saying money did not matter was suddenly very interested in how I handled mine. That night, I opened our shared calendar and went back through the past 2 months. Nothing jumped out immediately. Then I saw a weekend entry Clara had created and later deleted. The app still showed enough history for me to recognize the dates. That weekend, she had told me she was staying with Kendra because Kendra had been having some personal issues and did not want to be alone. I had stayed home with Ivy. There was also a charge on our joint card for a rental property. I had noticed it before. Clara had said she had reimbursed Kendra for a weekend getaway because Kendra was dealing with a breakup. At the time, I had not questioned it. Now I called Kendra. I kept my voice as neutral as I could. Do you remember the weekend Clara stayed with you in June? Kendra said, stayed with me? The weekend you were having a rough time. There was a silence long enough that my stomach tightened. Then she said, Mitchell, Clara didn't stay with me in June. I closed my eyes. She told me she did. I thought she was home with you and Ivy. That was the first clean crack in the story. Not proof of everything. Not yet. But it was enough that I stopped trying to explain away what I was seeing. I went through our joint expenses more carefully. I did not hack her phone. I did not guess passwords. I did not install anything. I looked at accounts I already had legal access to and at messages that had been sent directly to me. The rental charge lined up with the weekend Clara had lied about. A restaurant charge near the rental property showed up the next night. There were fuel charges in the same area. Then I found something worse, not because it proved the affair by itself, but because it proved the money issue had started before I understood there even was a money issue. A message from Adrian had come through to a shared family tablet months earlier. We barely used the thing anymore, and I was clearing old notifications while getting one of Ivy's school apps working. The message preview read, once he signs it, we can stop pretending. I froze. The thread was not accessible from the preview because the account had already been logged out, but the notification remained in the system history. I took a photo of it. Then I started paying attention instead of confronting. That was hard for me. My instinct was to demand an explanation immediately, but I had already watched Clara take one simple disagreement about account control and turn it into a story where I was financially abusing her. So I decided I wanted facts before I gave her another chance to write the narrative first. I made an appointment with a family law attorney. I also spoke to the financial institution managing the college account. The answer I wanted was simple. Could I make sure the money stayed available for Ivy's education without giving Clara the ability to withdraw it, redirect it, or leverage it during a divorce? There were options. So I took one. I restructured the account so that distributions would be controlled for qualified educational expenses. The practical effect was that Ivy's education remained funded, but Clara could not move the balance into an account she controlled or treat it like family cash. If Ivy later enrolled in college, tuition and other qualified costs could be paid directly. I did not take $1 back. I did not spend it on a car. I did not move it into some revenge account. I just made sure the person trying to take control of it could not touch it. At the same time, I stopped paying for things that had nothing to do with Ivy. For years, I had helped Shane, Clara's brother, with small stuff. Gas money, a repair here, a borrowed car there. Once, I covered part of an insurance deductible because he said he was short. That stopped. I also stopped covering Clara's discretionary spending from my personal account. Household expenses were still paid. Ivy's needs were still covered. But the endless extras that had become normal disappeared. Clara noticed almost immediately. What is this? She asked when one of her subscription charges failed against my card. You have your own card. You've always paid for it. I'm not anymore. She stared at me. So this is punishment? No. You're trying to scare me. No, Clara. I'm separating things that should have been separate a long time ago. She laughed without humor. You are unbelievable. Then she said, you don't get to play dad only when people clap for you. That one hurt more than I wanted her to know. I walked away before I answered. Later that night, I opened my desk drawer to get a pen. The old school concert ticket was sitting under a stack of receipts. I picked it up. For years, when I thought about being Ivy's father in any meaningful sense, I thought about moments like that concert. Ivy running down the aisle. Her arms around me. Her telling me my braid had looked less bad that morning. None of that had been fake. But Clara had managed to build a system where those memories counted as proof of my obligations and nothing else. When she wanted money, I was her father. When I wanted to say, I was insecure. When I asked about adoption, paperwork did not matter. When she wanted account control, Suddenly paperwork mattered very much. The final piece came from Shane. Not because he confessed, because he was careless. He texted me one afternoon asking if he could borrow my SUV for the weekend. I replied, no. He wrote back, seriously? Clara said you were being weird about money, but I didn't think that included me. I looked at the message for a while. Then I wrote, why would Clara talk to you about my money? His reply came too fast. She talks to Mom too. Everybody knows this is getting ugly. I asked, what exactly does everybody know? He stopped replying. About an hour later, Clara called me, furious. What did you say to Shane? I asked him a question. Stop dragging my family into our marriage. That sentence would have been funny if I had not already suspected her family was in it. That evening, I received a screenshot from an unexpected source. Kendra. She had apparently gotten into an argument with Clara after asking about the June weekend. Clara had accused her of taking my side, and Kendra had started comparing things Clara had told different people. The screenshot was from a message Clara had sent Kendra weeks earlier. I'm trying to get everything secure for Ivy before Mitchell does something emotional. Kendra wrote underneath it. She told me this meant the college account. I thought you were threatening to empty it. I replied, I never threatened that. Kendra answered, I know that now. The actual twist came 2 days later. Shane had used my laptop several times when his was broken. He had logged into a messaging service through a browser and apparently never fully logged out of one account. I only noticed because a notification popped up while I was using the computer. I did not go digging through years of his messages. I did not need to. The visible conversation had Clara's name near the top. The most recent relevant messages were from weeks earlier. Clara, I need to get the account moved before we tell him everything. Shane, he'll keep paying. He always does. Clara, Mom thinks so too. He's too attached to Ivy to walk. Shane, then why are you worried? Clara, because if he gets angry, he'll make it difficult just to prove a point. I stared at that screen until the words stopped feeling like words. They had discussed me like a payment system with feelings attached. I took photos, then closed the browser. I called my attorney. After that, I stopped wondering whether my marriage could be fixed. The affair itself was painful. The financial plan was clarifying. Clara and Adrian had not simply made a bad decision and then panicked. Clara, her mother, and her brother had discussed how to keep me paying after she left. That meant at least some part of the timeline had been planned. And suddenly, several things made sense. The pressure to transfer the college account. The insistence that I was controlling. The friends being told I was punishing Ivy. They were building the moral case before they needed it. If I kept paying, I was doing what a real father should do. If I stopped, I was abandoning a child. If I demanded any rights or boundaries, I was controlling. It was a perfect setup as long as I agreed to play my part. Then Ivy asked me the question that almost broke my resolve. We were driving home after an activity when she said, if people get divorced, does college money still count? I kept my eyes on the road. Why are you asking that? She looked out the window. Just wondering. Did someone say something to you? No. That answer sounded exactly like a kid who had definitely heard something. I said, you do not need to worry about adult money. She was quiet. Then she asked, you promised though, right? I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. Promised what? That you'd still help with school. Who told you that? Another pause. Dad said you would. Adrian. I pulled into our driveway and turned the engine off. I wanted to say a dozen ugly things. I did not. I turned toward her. Ivy, listen to me. Adults are working through adult problems. You did nothing wrong. Your college money is still there. So you're not taking it. No. Her shoulders dropped a little. Then she asked, are you leaving us? That question hurt worse. I'm not leaving you because of anything you did. That's not what I asked. She was 12, but she had always been sharp. I said, things between your mom and me are not good right now. She looked down at her hands. Mom said you're punishing the family. I waited before answering. I'm changing some things because adults have responsibilities for their own choices. That is not your job to fix. She did not look convinced. I could not blame her. From her perspective, the adults in her life were giving her different versions of reality and expecting her to somehow feel safe inside all of them. A week later, Clara announced she wanted everyone to sit down for dinner and clear the air. Everyone meant Clara, me, her parents, Shane, Kendra's husband, and Adrian. I asked why Adrian needed to be there. Clara said, because he is part of Ivy's life, whether you like it or not. I nearly said that Adrian being part of Ivy's life had never been the issue. Instead, I said, fine. I already knew what I was bringing. Not a binder. Not a slideshow. Not some theatrical stack of printed screenshots. I had copies of what mattered, mostly for myself and my attorney. The dinner was at Clara's parents' house. I drove separately. When I arrived, her mother greeted me like a disappointed principal. Her father gave me a tired nod. Shane barely looked up from his phone. Kendra looked uncomfortable. Adrian was standing near the kitchen counter holding a drink like he belonged there. Clara had clearly been talking before I arrived. I could tell because the mood was already set. We sat down. For the first 10 minutes, nobody ate much. Then Clara started. She said the purpose of the dinner was not to attack anyone, which is usually what people say before they attack someone. She talked about how difficult the last few months had been, how she was trying to build a healthy environment for Ivy, how Adrian was finally showing up consistently, how I had responded by tightening financial control. I let her talk. She said I had frozen access to money. I did not interrupt. She said I had stopped helping family members to isolate her. Still did not interrupt. Then she said I was weaponizing Ivy's future because I refused to transfer the college fund. Her mother jumped in. A real father would not make a child's education conditional. I said, it isn't conditional. She shook her head. A real father doesn't need his name on an account. That was when I looked at her and said, funny. You all became very interested in paperwork when the paperwork gave Clara access to the money. Her mother opened her mouth, but Clara spoke first. This is exactly what I mean. You're making everything adversarial. No, I'm listening. To what? To the version you wanted everyone to hear. Kendra shifted in her chair. Clara noticed. What? Kendra looked at her. Were you home the weekend of June 12th? Clara's face changed. It was small, but everyone saw it. She said, why does that matter? Kendra replied, because you told Mitchell you were with me. Clara looked at me. So now you're recruiting my friends? Kendra said, no. You told me you were home with him. Clara's voice sharpened. I don't remember exactly what I said months ago. I said I do. Adrian leaned back in his chair. This is turning into an interrogation. I looked at him. You sent me a message saying I couldn't buy my way into being Ivy's dad. He shrugged. I stand by that. I agree. That caught him off guard. I continued. Money does not make me her father. That is why it is strange that you and Clara were so concerned about whether I would keep paying after the marriage changed. Clara said, Mitchell. I looked at her. You wanted to clear the air. Her jaw tightened. I took out my phone. I found the rental charge from the weekend you said you were with Kendra. Clara said nothing. I found the restaurant charge near the rental. I found the deleted calendar entry. I found Adrian's message saying, once he signs it, we can stop pretending. Adrian's face went still. Her father looked at him. What does that mean? Adrian said, that could mean anything. I nodded. By itself, sure. Then I looked at Clara. But then Shane left his messages open on my laptop. Shane sat up. What? I ignored him. I read the lines out loud. I need to get the account moved before we tell him everything. Nobody spoke. I read Shane's reply. He'll keep paying. He always does. Shane said, that was not about what you think. I finally looked at him. Then tell me what it was about. He looked at Clara. That was answer enough. I read the rest. Mom thinks so too. He's too attached to Ivy to walk. Her mother's face flushed. She said, we were trying to protect a child. No, you were trying to protect the payment stream. That is disgusting. Yes, I said. It is. Clara pushed back from the table. You don't understand the situation. I understand enough. No, you don't. Adrian and I have history. Things got complicated. Kendra stared at her. Were you sleeping with him? Clara looked at Kendra like the question itself was a betrayal. Kendra said, you told me he was harassing you and Mitchell was jealous because you were setting boundaries. Clara's eyes started filling. It was not that simple. Kendra gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. You told me Mitchell was threatening to take Ivy's college money. I said he was controlling it. He funded it. That does not mean he gets to use it against me. I finally interrupted. It is not against you. It is not for you. Clara turned toward me. That account is for my daughter. Yes. Then why do you need control? I don't need control over Ivy. I need to make sure you cannot take money I saved for her education and move it before telling me you were leaving me for Adrian. Adrian said, nobody said she was leaving you for me. I looked at him. You told Ivy I would still pay for school because that is what I promised. His mouth opened slightly. I continued. I never made that promise to you. Clara snapped. You promised Ivy you would take care of her. I did take care of her. Did. The word hung there. I hated that she used it because she knew exactly what it would do to me. She leaned forward. You have spent 8 years acting like her father. You do not get to turn it off because you are angry at me. I'm not turning off my relationship with Ivy. You already are. No, I'm turning off your access to me. Her mother said, you are splitting hairs. I looked at her. No, you are. All of you want me to have a father's obligations and none of a father's rights. You blocked adoption because paperwork supposedly did not matter. Now you want paperwork because it gives Clara control of the money. Clara wiped at her eyes. I never blocked adoption. You delayed it for 6 years. Because Adrian is her father. Then let Adrian be responsible for being her father. Adrian pushed his chair back. I am. Good. He frowned. I said, then we agree. That was when I took the envelope out of my jacket. Clara stared at it. I did not slide it across the table dramatically. I set it beside her plate. My attorney filed this morning. She looked down. What is that? You know what it is. Her voice dropped. You filed for divorce? Yes. You came here planning this. I came here knowing I was done being talked into doubting what I already knew. She opened the envelope far enough to see the first page, then shoved it away. You are humiliating me. I shook my head. I did not invite everyone here. You could have told me privately. I tried to talk to you privately for months. You used those conversations to build a story about me. Her mother muttered, this is cruel. I turned to her. You were part of a conversation about getting the college account moved before Clara told me everything. She went quiet. Then Clara asked the question she had apparently assumed still had a different answer. What did you do to the account? I said, I protected it. Her face tightened. How? The money is still there for Ivy. Qualified educational expenses can be paid directly. You cannot withdraw it, move it, or take control of it. She stared at me. You had no right. I funded it. It is Ivy's. Yes, that is why it is still Ivy's. She started crying then. Not fake crying, not theatrical crying. She looked overwhelmed, furious, and scared all at once. I am sure some part of her truly did believe she was protecting Ivy. That did not make what she had done acceptable. She said, you are destroying this family. I said, the family you wanted was you and Adrian together, me paying from somewhere else, and everyone calling me a monster if I objected. That is not fair. It is exactly what Shane's messages said. Shane raised both hands. Do not put this all on me. I'm not. Her father finally spoke. He had barely said anything the entire night. He looked at Clara. Did you plan to leave him after the account was transferred? Clara said nothing. Her father asked again. Clara. She whispered, I did not know exactly what I was going to do. That was the closest thing to an answer we got. Kendra stood up. I'm going home. Clara looked up at her. Seriously? Kendra said, you told me he was threatening your daughter. He is. No, he wouldn't give you an account. Clara looked like she had been slapped. Kendra shook her head. I defended you. Then she left with her husband. That was the moment Clara lost control of the story. Not because everybody suddenly loved me. They did not. Her mother remained furious. Shane insisted I had taken private jokes out of context. Adrian said I was using money to punish Clara. But Kendra's change mattered because she had been one of the people Clara used as proof that everyone agreed with her. I stood to leave. Clara followed me into the hallway. Her eyes were red. Do you feel good about this? No. You came here to embarrass me. I came because you invited people here to pressure me into apologizing. You could have just said no. I did. For weeks. She stared at me. Then she said the worst thing she could have said. Ivy is going to hate you. I believed she might. That was what made it effective. I said, I can survive you being angry at me. I can even survive Ivy being angry at me for a while. I cannot keep letting you use her to control what I'm allowed to say no to. Clara covered her face. I walked out. The first few weeks after that were ugly in a boring, realistic way. No one's life exploded overnight. There was no instant justice. There were attorney calls, scheduling problems, separate accounts, arguments about household items, and long stretches where Clara and I communicated almost entirely by text because speaking turned every subject into another fight. Adrian found out quickly that being there had a price tag. I had been paying for more than he seemed to realize. There were activity fees, equipment, school expenses, transportation costs, insurance-related expenses, random things that never feel big one at a time, but add up fast. I kept paying what I had already committed to for Ivy when it made sense and when it could be paid directly. I did not keep covering everything simply because someone expected me to. Clara complained that Adrian was still getting stable. I reminded her that he was the one demanding recognition as Ivy's real father. She told me that was petty. Maybe part of me enjoyed the irony. But I did not invent the responsibility. I just stopped hiding it from him. Shane called me once to ask if we were really going to let this destroy the whole family. I asked what he meant by we. He hung up. Her mother sent several long texts about how a man who had raised a child should not walk away over adult mistakes. I responded once. I am not discussing finances with you again. She kept texting. I stopped replying. Her father was different. About a month after the dinner, he called. He said, I should have stayed out of the account conversation. I did not say anything. He continued. I thought Clara was scared. I did not understand how much had already happened. I said, you still told me I should keep paying no matter what. He sighed. I did. That was as close to an apology as he got. I accepted it for what it was. Clara and Adrian did officially get together. They did not make some grand announcement. They did not need to. It just became obvious. For a while, Clara continued telling people that our marriage had ended because of my financial control. Some believed her. Some did not. Kendra stopped defending her. That mattered more than any public confrontation could have. Kendra later told me Clara had given different people different versions. To Kendra, I was a jealous husband who hated Adrian. To her mother, I was emotionally attached enough to Ivy that I would keep paying no matter what. To Shane, I was predictable. To Adrian, I was the stepdad trying to buy a title. Every version was designed for the listener. The hardest part was Ivy. For the first 2 weeks after I moved out, she barely answered my texts. I sent simple ones. Hope your test went okay. Your blue jacket is still here if you need it. I left your art box with your mom. Sometimes she replied with one word. Sometimes nothing. Clara told me Ivy needed space. I respected that, even though I was never completely sure how much of the space was Ivy's choice and how much came from what she was hearing. Eventually, Clara agreed that I could take Ivy out for lunch. I was more nervous about that lunch than I had been about the dinner. Ivy sat across from me in a booth, pushing fries around her plate. She looked older somehow. Not physically, just tired. After a while she said, Mom says you locked my college money. I changed how it works. So you did. Yes, but not the way she means. I kept my voice calm. The money is still for your education. Your mom cannot take it out. I cannot just spend it on myself either. What if I don't go to college? That's a bigger conversation for later. She frowned. Dad says you changed it because you're mad. I changed it because adults were making plans with money that was supposed to be for you. She looked down. Are you mad at Mom? Yes. She seemed surprised. Maybe she expected me to dodge it. I continued. But you do not have to be mad at her because I am. Are you mad at Dad? Yes. Another pause. Are you mad at me? No. That answer came faster than anything else. She nodded, but her eyes filled. Then she said, everybody keeps talking about me. I swallowed. I know. They say they're doing things for me. I know. I didn't ask anybody to. I know. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. I said, adults made a mess. That does not make you a mess. She gave me a look. That sounds like something from a poster. I laughed despite myself. Fair. She almost smiled. I tried again. You are not responsible for fixing any of this. That landed better. We talked for about 40 minutes. Not all of it was serious. She complained about school. She told me Adrian was trying too hard and had bought the wrong brand of cereal 3 times. She asked if I still knew how to braid hair. I told her I had retired undefeated. She said I had never won. That was the first normal conversation we had had in months. Before she got out of my car, she asked, are you still going to come to my concert in the fall? I said, if you want me there. She said, I do. That was not a full repair. It was enough. The divorce kept moving. There were still arguments. Clara accused me more than once of using the college fund as leverage. My attorney advised me to keep every communication factual, and I did my best. I never threatened to remove the fund. I never made access to it conditional on Ivy seeing me. I never tied it to the divorce settlement. It stayed what I had always intended it to be, money for Ivy's education, protected from adults who had started treating it like something else. That distinction mattered to me. It also cost me. I lost a marriage I had invested years in. I lost the easy assumption that I would be there every morning when Ivy came into the kitchen half awake. I missed routines I had complained about while I had them. I missed finding hair ties on every surface in the house. I missed hearing Ivy shout from another room because she had lost something that was almost always exactly where I told her to look. There were days I wondered whether I should have handled the dinner differently. Maybe exposing everything in front of friends and family was too much. Maybe I should have handed Clara the papers privately the day before. I still do not know. What I do know is that the dinner was not some random public ambush I arranged. Clara created that room because she believed the people in it would pressure me into surrendering. She thought the moral weight of family and real father and Ivy's future would make me sign. Instead, everyone heard what had actually been happening. Months later, while clearing out the last of my things from the house, I opened my old desk drawer. The school concert ticket was still there. The edges were soft from being moved around over the years. I sat in the empty room for a minute holding it. For a long time, I had treated memories like that as evidence in a case I was always trying to win. Evidence that I had earned my place. That I had stayed long enough. Paid enough. Shown up enough. But Ivy running down the aisle to hug me had never been a contract. Neither were the lunches, the rides, the bad braids, or the college account. Those things were real because we had lived them, not because Clara approved of what they meant. I put the ticket in a small envelope. I wrote Ivy's name on the front. Inside, I added a short note. I told her the college money was still hers for school. I told her I hoped she would use it to build whatever future she wanted. And I told her that nothing about the divorce erased the years I was lucky enough to be there for her. I did not mention Clara. I did not mention Adrian. I did not explain the affair. She already had enough adults trying to recruit her into their version of events. A few days later, I gave her the envelope. She opened it while we were sitting in my car. When she saw the ticket, she stared at it for a second. Then she said, "You kept this?" "Yeah." "Why?" "I don't know." She turned it over in her fingers. "I remember that skirt. The sparkly blue one." She looked at me. "You remember that?" "I remember a lot." She folded the note back into the envelope. Then she put it carefully into her backpack. That was it. No speech. No instant healing. No promise that everything would go back to normal. It could not. But the college account is still intact. The divorce is still moving forward. Clara no longer has access to my personal money. Adrian is paying more of Ivy's real expenses now because there is no longer a silent agreement that I will cover whatever he does not. Shane stopped asking me for favors. Her mother stopped sending messages after I stopped answering. Her father and I are civil. Kendra and I are not suddenly best friends, but she did apologize for believing the first version she heard. and Ivy and I are rebuilding something separate from the marriage. Slower now. More carefully. That is the part one care about. I used to think loving a family meant proving you would never walk away, no matter how badly you were treated. Now I think there is a difference between walking away from a child and refusing to remain useful to adults who only call you family when the bill arrives. I did not take Ivy's future from her. I just stopped letting everyone else spend my love like it belonged to them. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.